Welcome to another Chase for the Championship. I'm Todd Gibson in this week for Chris Clark. We've got plenty of basketball to talk about this week, so let's get right to it. For the first time since 2014, the North Carolina Tar Heels are not in the top 25 in the AP poll. They've now lost 4 in a row and 5 of their last 6. UNC's latest loss at second-ranked Gonzaga last night. It was close early, but the Bulldogs pulled away in the first half and didn't look back. Forward Garrison Brooks, he led the Tar Heels with 16 points, but Gonzaga's duo of Philip Petrusev and Corey Kispert are too much to handle, combining to score 46 points. Final score in Spokane, 94-81. Coach Roy Williams says his team just needs to find their confidence again.
Well, I've tried to get them to focus on not the result, but the technique. You know, you go up on a putt from 4 feet, you don't think, oh my God, I'm going to miss this. You think of technique and how you're going to putt it. And I don't know anything else to do. You know, they're 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds, so they've got to be able to handle some things. But if the first putt goes in, the next one seems to have a better chance to go in, the next one seems to have a better chance. So, but we're missing shots. You know, Mondo's struggling around the basket. I think he had 1 tip in, but that may have been his only basket tonight. So he's like 3 for probably 20 or something like that the last 2 games.
That loss comes just 3 days after Wofford upset the Tar Heels in the Dean Dome. UNC led that one at halftime, but the Terriers used a 16-0 run in the second half to pull away for good. This is actually the second time in the last 3 seasons that Wofford has upset the Tar Heels on their home floor. If the Tar Heels want to turn things around, they'll have to do it without freshman guard Cole Anthony. He had knee surgery earlier on Monday and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. The Tar Heels will stay out west this weekend. They have to take on UCLA on Saturday in the afternoon's CBS Sports Classic in Las Vegas. That one tips off at 3 o'clock. Then UNC will head back home to host Yale on December 30th. After their big upset of UNC, Wofford is back in Central North Carolina looking for another upset right now. They're about to tip off at Cameron Indoor Stadium against 4th-ranked Blue Devils. Duke will have to shake off the rust in this one. They haven't played a game since their game against Virginia Tech way back on December 6th. Blue Devils are 9-1 this season, with their only loss coming at home to Stephen F. Austin just before the Thanksgiving. After tonight's game, they'll be able to enjoy some more time off with their next game not until December 28th when they host Brown. NC State also in action tonight, but they won't tip until 9 o'clock. The Wolfpack will try to pull the upset at Auburn. It won't be easy, though. The Tigers are undefeated this year, ranked 12th in the country. After tonight's game, the Wolfpack will head back home for a matchup with the Citadel. That one's on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. The Wolfpack will be looking to use some momentum from the exciting win over the weekend at UNC Greensboro. This one was back and forth until the end, until Markel Johnson hit a game-winning 3-pointer at the buzzer to give the Wolfpack an 80-77 win.
Get it up before the time went out. That was the only thing that was going through my mind. You know, at a moment like that, I tried to get a defensive stop at the, on the other end. God scored, so I was just trying to get it back.
He was having a good night. He was feeling it. Markel's a kid that never really asked for the basketball, and he was telling me run a couple plays for him. He was feeling it at the time, and he just made a big play.
That was a nice win for the Wolfpack, no question about it. All right, Wake Forest was on a 3-game losing skid when they welcomed 23rd-ranked Xavier to Winston-Salem over the weekend. And as WGHP's Kevin Connolly reports, the Demon Deacons pulled off the upset.
Just when everybody was down on Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons pull off a big-time upset. Wake Forest beat number 23 Xavier in the Skip Prosser Classic last week. It was the type of performance that can really spark a basketball team moving forward. And sometimes it can be just that one performance that changes everything. Wake Forest is certainly hoping that's the case.
Yes, sir. It gave us a lot of confidence. We knew that coming in that, they were going to try to come out and, kind of punk us, but we know we weren't going to back down to any challenge. So we worked hard and every day in practice before that leading up. And we just followed up and did everything our coaches asked us to do, and we came out successfully.
Wake played that game without big man Olivier Sarr, so junior Sean D. Brown had maybe the biggest game of his career. He scored 26 points. 18 of those came in the first half when Wake Forest really established its offense. Brown was named the ACC Player of the Week.
I knew it was a big game. First of all, they were ranked 23 Xavier. So I found out, Olivier wasn't playing. So all of us had to step up, and I give my credit to my teammates and coaches. They put me in the right spots, and they gave me the ball in the right time, and I just, hit my shots. So I give all my credit to my teammates, most of all.
Wake Forest plays North Carolina A&T at home on Saturday. The Aggies are 0-6 on the road this season. I know it's not far from Greensboro to Winston-Salem, but it is a road game, while Wake Forest has been much better at home with a 3-1 record at the Joel Coliseum. Covering Wake Forest, I'm Kevin Conley.
And that game against North Carolina A&T is on Saturday at noon. That's Wake Forest's last game of the 2019 campaign so far. They'll be off 2 whole weeks before they take the court again. And the ACC schedule resumes in January. Notre Dame might be 0-2 in conference play, but they're 8-3 overall this season. The Irish are coming off a big win in South Bend against one of their oldest rivals. Covering Notre Dame and joining us live now is WTTV's Chris Whitlick. What was the key in that 14-point win over UCLA this past weekend?
Well, they finally decided to make some shots. This is a very poor shooting Notre Dame basketball team, kind of unusual for Mike Brey. He usually has a couple sharpshooters in there, but one of his seniors, Rex Pfluger, who hurt himself 1 year ago, hasn't been able to find his shooting touch. And Notre Dame hit 15 triples against the UCLA Bruins, and that's coming off a game where they beat Detroit Mercy with 23 pointers. So I think they're finally finding that groove. Mike Brey wants them to play quicker. He wants them to take the open shot, hopefully hit the open shot, and go from there. But again, the magic for Notre Dame is finally making their shots. That really cost them early on in the season with a couple of those losses at Carolina, at Maryland, those 2 tough trips in the ACC. But I think they're gaining some confidence. Hopefully that'll take them deeper into the ACC season now.
Yeah, you got to hit those shots, no question about it. Now, Mike Brey is using a very short bench so far this season. Only 7 players saw minutes on Saturday. Do you see the Irish having any issues with fatigue as the games start to really pick up?
I wouldn't be surprised if it does catch up to them. Mike Brey loves seniors. I haven't met a college coach that loves their seniors more. He's got 4 senior starters, which is pretty rare for a major basketball program, a Power 5 team, to have 5 senior starters. There's usually some attrition. Some guys leave early for the pros. Some guys decide to transfer. But Mike Brey grooms his players. He likes junior and senior players, and he's got 5 seniors on this team. Again, 4 of them start. They've been through this system for quite some time, and right now he just doesn't have the trust coming off the bench. He's got a couple bench players in Goodwin who is critical for this Irish team to be successful. But if he gets his quality play from his 4 senior starters, he's going to keep them in. He's going to ride the horse, and so far that's worked for him. We'll see how it does as this year progresses.
Oh, and John Mooney, he is a load. He's led the rebounding for the Irish all but one of their contests this season. He's put up some big points as well. Tell us a little bit more about his impact.
John Mooney is a real leader for this Notre Dame basketball team. He is the most physical player. He is probably the hardest worker. He's a double-double machine for Mike Brey and the Fighting Irish. What's changed about him this year is he's playing with more passion and he's being more vocal. Brey needs him to be more vocal to get this offense moving, this solid defense going. And he says he's trying hard to be more vocal. It's tough for him because he's kind of a quiet kid. He kind of leads by example. He'll scrap. He'll dive for balls on the floor. He hits the glass harder than most players you'll see. But it's that passion that rubs off on the rest of his team. Now it's the vocal part that as leaders need to be. You lead by example. You lead with your voice. And hopefully that's going to happen as the season unfolds for the Fighting Irish.
All right, it's a big one on Saturday for Notre Dame when they square off against Indiana in the Crossroads Classic in Indianapolis. These 2 teams face each other every other season. What can we expect from this one?
It's going to be a great one. This doubleheader, it's called the Crossroads Classic that you mentioned at Bankers Life Fieldhouse. They revived this about 6-7 years ago, and they kind of rotate the matchups. Notre Dame plays Purdue or IU every other year, and Butler's the other team in there. They don't have the Big Ten teams face each other, so it's going to be Notre Dame and IU at high noon here on Saturday. The place is always rocking. It always brings a lot of passion, especially for the Indiana kids. And what's interesting about this matchup is Notre Dame leads the nation in the fewest fouls, which is kind of interesting, while IU gets to the free throw line more than any other team in the nation. So something has to give there. It's offense against defense. IU likes to shoot. They've been struggling in the backcourt. Notre Dame likes to play tough defense. So it'll be very interesting to see what gives when Notre Dame plays IU on Saturday. But I can tell you one thing, Notre Dame's coming in with a lot of confidence with those big victories over Detroit and UCLA, and that's certainly going to help them against the Hoosiers on Saturday.
Yeah, two great programs, no question about it. All right, thanks, Chris. We'll definitely be watching that one closely on Saturday. Florida State has won 9 of their last 10 games, and they got some time to rest and recover before their matchup with Sunshine State rivals North Florida. WBBM's Emma Stamps is covering the Seminoles.
Florida State back in action after taking a week and a half off. They took down another in-state team, North Florida, on Tuesday night, 98-81. The Seminoles dominated inside with 62 points in the paint, and it was the big men on the court who were able to lead that charge. Freshman center Balsa Kopervita had a team-high 15 points, and senior center Dominic Olejnichuk added 11 to that. But everyone got a share of the points. The Seminoles had 11 players score in the game. The Ospreys tried to hit back from the three-point line, making 13 of their 34 attempts, including making 9 of 17 in the first half. They entered the game leading the nation in threes with 149 made three-pointers, but it was going to take more than that to beat the Noles. They held North Florida to just 22 points in the paint. Florida State has home games through the rest of December, and they will not get on the road until January. They host South Florida this Saturday. Covering Florida State, I'm Emma Stamps.
All right, Virginia is now 9-1 this season and holding down their place at number 9 in the rankings. Their defense is stifling as always. They've held 8 of their 10 opponents this season under 50 points. WRIC's Natalie Calabat takes a closer look at the Cavs' latest win.
The number 9 Virginia Cavaliers returned from a 10-day break for finals to defeat the Stony Brook Seawolves 56-44 at John Paul Jones Arena last night.
Kihei Clark led the way with 14 points while Mamadi Diakite chipped in 13 for Tony Bennett's squad.
When we needed some big plays, Mamadi and Kihei came up with them, and then Kihei had, uncharacteristic, some of those turnovers that, I felt like there were some self-inflicted wounds or unforced errors, whatever you say that, but they made the plays when they needed to, and that's part of being two of our most experienced players have to continue to do that and lead to the best of their abilities.
For Diakite, that leadership comes with the territory.
It's always a night where veterans have to step up. It's a matter of the younger guys following the lead. That's the only question that's aboard, but I thought they responded.
UVA also received a solid contribution from its bench. Jay Huff scored 8 of his 12 points during a key run in the second half.
The 9-1 Cavaliers will stay in Charlottesville to play South Carolina at 3 on Sunday. Covering Virginia, I'm Natalie Calabat.
All right, Natalie, the Boston College Eagles are now on the other coast getting ready for a showdown with Cal. They'll face off in San Francisco in the Al Atos Classic. Tip-off is Saturday at 5:30. BC looking to make it 4 wins in a row in that one. The Eagles had no problem handling Central Connecticut on Sunday. BCU led almost the whole way, winning 74-55. Jared Hamilton paced the Eagles coming off the bench to score 18 points. Forward Stephon Mitchell also had a big game with 13 points and 12 rebounds. Georgia Tech, they are heading in the wrong direction. The Yellow Jackets kept things close at Kentucky over the weekend, but as WJBF's Brendan Roberts reports, they've lost 3 in a row now.
The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets are in the midst of a 3-game losing skid, losing to Ball State at home Wednesday night 65-47. Southern Cal transfer Jordan Usher making his long-awaited debut for the Jackets after being forced to sit out due to NCAA transfer rules, playing back home in front of his hometown family and friends. But it wasn't enough as Tech struggled shooting all night and turned the ball over 24 times.
Our last 3 games, 2 of the 3, we just have been poor. And that falls on me. So I've got to do a better job. And Jordan Usher, the Jordan Usher today has not been the Jordan Usher who's been in practice. So I haven't seen that Jordan Usher who played today. That's the Jordan Usher I've seen in practice has been really, really good. The Jordan Usher today, obviously didn't play well. There's going to be some nerves and some rusted, him being rusty because he hasn't played in a year.
Tech returns to action Sunday, December 22nd, facing Boise State in the opening round of the Diamond Head Classic in Honolulu, Hawaii. With the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, I'm Brendan Robertson. Back to you.
The Louisville Cardinals are now ranked 3rd in the country, and they've got one more chance to make a big statement before ACC play gets back underway. Let's welcome NWHET's Randall Parmley, who's covering the Cardinals. Randall, it might be more than a week away, but man, we can't help but look forward to Louisville's trip to Lexington to take on Kentucky. How do the Cardinals win that one?
Well, I think it's going to be defense leading the way for this one for Louisville. If they have any chance at winning in Lexington, a place that they have not won at since 2008. Kentucky has really dominated this series. The difference this year is that Louisville's got a lot of experience, and their defense is in lockdown mode right now. They're holding their opponents to a well under 40% shooting for the year. Kentucky, meanwhile, the one Achilles heel in this Kentucky team, they don't shoot the ball very well at all. They lost last night to Utah in a night where they only hit 2 3-pointers, and Louisville has been death beyond the arc as far as their defense goes. So I think if Louisville wins this game, it's going to be all about the defense.
Wow, that's hard to believe about Kentucky. All right, Jordan Ware continues to lead Louisville in scoring this season. Do you see him coming up big on that big stage?
I really do. You know, the one bad game that he had was Louisville's one loss to Texas Tech, where he scored only 14 points. And this is a guy who has just been phenomenal all season for Louisville. I expect him to have a big day in Rupp Arena in just a few days against the Wildcats.
Man, he's a good player. All right, what adjustments have the Cardinals made since that loss to Texas Tech earlier this month?
You know, I really don't think that they've made a lot of adjustments. Chris Mack said after that game, the loss to Texas Tech, that his team just didn't play well. They weren't in any type of rhythm, and he just didn't have his team prepared to play. Since that Texas Tech loss, they've kind of been back to their old self with wins against Eastern Kentucky and then against Miami of Ohio last night. So I really think that was just a little blip in the road, so to speak. Louisville looks like the same Louisville we've seen so far this year, the last 2 games after that Texas Tech loss. I don't think they really had to figure anything out, make any adjustments. They just had to get back to playing Louisville basketball.
Louisville, Kentucky doesn't get better than that. All right, thanks, Randall. We'll be sure not to miss that big showdown coming up in Lexington.
Should be a good one.
The Miami Hurricanes travel to Brooklyn to take on Temple in the Air Force Reserve Hall of Fame Invitational. Miami led 39-38 at the break, and things stayed close in the second half. Hurricanes trailed 77-76 with less than 15 seconds to go, and Chris Likes made 2 clutch free throws to give Miami the 78-77 lead. Temple had a chance at the buzzer but could not convert. Those 2 free throws by Likes were part of his team-leading 17 points. Cameron McGusty also had a big game for the Hurricanes with 12 points and 10 rebounds. Miami has just one more game before they get back into ACC play. They host Coppin State on Saturday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and then on New Year's Eve, the Hurricanes travel to Clemson for a 4 p.m. tip-off. Clemson won 5 of their first 6 games, but now find themselves at 5-5 on the season. WSPA's Pete Yannity is covering the Tigers as their struggles continue.
As Christmas approaches, the Clemson Tigers are on a 4-game losing streak, coming off a defeat against their rivals South Carolina by 13 points on Sunday, a contest in which they shot 28% from the field and that same number beyond the arc and never had any flow going offensively, according to their head coach Brad Brownell after the game.
We played very poorly in stretches, having a hard time, getting some of our players to just slow down a little bit. I think they think the answer is to play faster, some of our younger players, and we're finding out that that's not going to be the answer at this level. We also got to have some guys step up. They're going to have to make tough plays in games like this. When you play the Florida States and South Carolinas and they make it very difficult to move the ball, we've got to do a better job of getting in the paint and being aggressive and physical.
The Tigers certainly hoping back-to-back home contests against Jacksonville and Yale on the weekend get them turned back in the right direction before they return to ACC play just before the new year when they take on the Hurricanes of Miami. Covering the Clemson Tigers, I'm Pete Yannity.
Tigers will look to end that 4-game losing streak against Jacksonville tomorrow night. That one starts at 9, and then the Tigers won't have long to rest and recover. Yale visits Littlejohn Coliseum on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock. Syracuse took the loss on the road to their old Big East rival Georgetown, but they've won 2 of their last 3. WSYR's Darius Joshua takes a look at the Oranges' up-and-down week.
Well, we're starting to sound like a broken record. Even in wins, Syracuse has some of the same issues pop up for them on the court. Once again, the Orange were out-rebounded by its opponent, and the interior defense still needs some work. After the game, both Coach Boeheim and the players all reiterated that they know they need to get better to have success later in the season.
Our interior defense is, it's got to be better. They're really good. Those 2 big guys, they got are real good, real strong. They made a great effort to get the ball inside to those guys.
We got to get better. Helping the big guys down low. There's been a few times now where the opposing big scored about 20 points and had maybe over double-digit rebounds. But it's on all of us. It's not on just one guy.
We just got to compete. We got to come out and compete and really and try to hold it down back there. I know it's hard. We got some thin guys, but so we still got to play with a lot of heart and just compete.
We definitely protected the three-point line well. They got us inside a couple of times, but they ran a really good offense, and they had two really good bigs. But for the most part, I thought we got a lot of deflections, and were able to limit them inside and, made sure that they didn't get any easy looks.
The 5-game homestand continues for Syracuse on Saturday. The Orange will take on North Florida in its second-to-last non-conference game. Tip-off comes up at 6. Covering Syracuse, I'm Darius Joshua.
Up next for the Orange, 2 more games for the Christmas break. North Florida comes to town on Saturday for a 6 p.m. tip-off, and then a week later, Syracuse hosts Niagara. That one's December 28th at 7 o'clock. Pitt, 8-3 on the season now after being held to just 46 points in a loss to Louisville earlier this month. The Panthers got back on track with a win at home against Northern Illinois on Monday. The Huskies actually led for most of the second half until Pitt closed out the game on a 15-0 run to win 59-50. Trey McGowan's led the way for the Panthers with 18 points off the bench. The Panthers will now look to continue their winning ways as they close out the 2019. They host Binghamton tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, and then it's 10 days off before they're back in action against Canisius on December 30th at high noon. Virginia Tech bounced back from their loss against Duke to pick up a pair of wins at home. WFXR's David DeGuzman is covering the Hokies in Blacksburg.
Virginia Tech producing a solid 73-46 victory over the Big South tournament champions from last year, Gardner-Webb. Landers Nolly led the way with 18 points, while Tyrese Radford dropping a double-double, 10 points and 10 rebounds. Also, the Hokies lighting it up from beyond the arc with 13 made three-pointers. The team says this is a step in the right direction.
I feel like we did amazing today defensively. We had more guys talking, not just BD or PJ, like the normal guys who talk. I feel like everybody knew what was going on. We knew the play calls. We knew what was coming, so like it just helped our defense and kind of shut them down.
Today I thought I just played well defensively, and I think that just translated to the offensive end, just being in the right place on defense, talking, and then just offense just playing the right way. The biggest thing for us is just to stay locked in, keep playing together, and just play hard defensively.
I think we have very good depth. We have a lot of good underrated guards. We work extremely hard every single day, and it's all showing on the court right now.
Virginia Tech improving to 8-3 on the season, and next up in non-conference action, an in-state meeting with VMI on Saturday right here at Castle Coliseum. Covering the Virginia Tech Hokies, I'm David DeGuzman.
That game against VMI, 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. The Hokies will then have a whole week off before getting back into action on December 29th against Maryland Eastern Shore. Well, the ACC schedule is getting ready to start again, and that means teams are getting their last chances to impress against opponents outside the conference. And those big games making a big impact on the national championship odds. Joining us now to take a closer look is Jason Logan from Covers.com. North Carolina has lost star point guard Cole Anthony for 4 to 6 weeks after he underwent a procedure on his knee. How does that loss impact the Tar Heels' odds to win the national championship this season, Jason?
Yeah, the North Carolina Tar Heels, they came into the season among the favorites to win the national title at 14-1. Now, heading into that loss against Gonzaga last night, they had fallen back down to 60-1, and they may still drop a little bit here, but I don't think odds makers are going to discount them too much more than that. They're going to give a little respect to this program here. One, they take a lot of action on North Carolina, but two, they know that guys like Anthony are going to be back, and Coach Roy Williams is going to have this team figured out in the second half of the season. So I don't think we're going to see them discounted too much before ACC play goes full out here in the next month, 2 months.
Wow, didn't realize that. All right, speaking of UNC, the Heels face another college basketball blue blood in UCLA at the 5th annual CBS Sports Classic in Las Vegas on Saturday. What does Roy Williams need to do to get his team back on track?
Yeah, well, following that loss to Gonzaga last night, that's 4 straight losses for UNC. It's the first time they've had to suffer through that since 2010. And if you look back at that season, they had to settle for an NIT berth that year. I'm not ready to write off their big dance chances just yet. Heading into this UCLA game, I mean, it's easy to say, well, they need to shoot the ball better. But in their current incarnation with a lot of bodies banged up and guys missing, that's tough. They're shooting just 27% from beyond the arc over their last 3. Defensively, though, I think they can toughen up, and they definitely need to. They're giving up 44% shooting to opponents over their last 3 games. UCLA comes in here. They're not a high-scoring threat. They definitely aren't from beyond the arc, shooting just 32% from distance. I think Roy Williams has to come in, put defense first in the minds of his players, and get this win, a very, very important win before the holiday exam break. They take that positive into the break, they heal up, and they come back refocused for the ACC schedule.
Yeah, that would be a huge win, no question. Now on Sunday, the Virginia Cavaliers host South Carolina, the final game before the holiday break. While the Cavs are 9-1 on the season, they're one of the worst bets in the country at 3-7 against the spread. Can the bettors trust them in this non-conference clash?
Yeah, the biggest issue remains on offense with the Cavs here, shooting just 37% over their last 3 games, and they failed to crack the 60-point mark in any of those games. They're not going to be able to catch their breath or catch any breaks here against Frank Martin's defense. South Carolina took it to Clemson, an ACC opponent, in their last game. And heading into that game, Frank Martin had about a week off, and he tinkered with his lineup. He tinkered with his starters, specifically his backcourt and his point guard, and it generated a little extra offense for them. However, it did generate a little extra turnovers for them. They coughed the ball up 21 times. That's something they can't afford against a defense as good as Virginia's. This is a bit of a mismatch in pace. South Carolina wants to pick it up. Virginia wants to slow it down. I think with that transition in backcourt for the Gamecocks entering this road game against Virginia, I like the Cavs here to transform some of those mistakes into easy buckets, win this, and cover the spread.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you again soon. We are now just 6 days away from Christmas, so we're going to give everybody some time off for the holidays next week. The chase for the championship will return in the new year. We'll, of course, be taking a look back on some of the biggest games of the holidays, including that top 10 showdown between Louisville and Kentucky. We'll also preview the return of the ACC play. Some of the biggest games that first weekend of January include a showdown between Virginia and Virginia Tech in Charlottesville. And the 19th-ranked Florida State Seminoles pay a visit to 3rd-ranked Louisville. All right, thanks for joining us on Chase for the Championship. Have yourselves a happy holidays, and we will see you again in the new year. Until then, get out there and see some basketball. Good night, everybody.